Good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday. We have an amazing show for everybody today. What do we have, Krystal?
Indeed, we do. We have a lot that we're going to try to get through this morning. So we're taking a look, of course, at those tariffs. What are they going to be? They'll be instituted tomorrow on quote-unquote a Liberation Day. So looking at what we know and what the fallout is likely to be. Trump just pardoned a whole rash of fraudsters. The details are really quite stunning, so we'll get into that. Everybody from Hawk to a girl. Well, I guess she didn't get a pardon, but her action was stupid. Right. No charges filed, whatever.
She got away with it.
A Hunter Biden associate. That one is particularly grotesque, so give you all the details there. Coffeezilla is also all over that one. Bibi is now saying that their plan for Gaza is Trump's plan, complete ethnic cleansing. So, you know, we are getting some clarity about the horrors that will continue to be perpetrated in the Gaza Strip. Trump is threatening to bomb Iran, so that's cool and great and looking good. I'm taking a look at Elon's election lies and what they could mean. Faz Shakir is going to join us to talk about the Stop Oligarchy tour and where it may be headed and where the Democratic Party may be headed. And we had to put this in, Elon baby mama drama. Ashley St. Clair posts a video. They're going back and forth on Twitter. Laura Loomer's involved, whatever. So we'll try to get that in at the end of the show.
Gotta get my tabloid fix in here at the end of the show. I mean, yeah, it's just too good, right, folks? We can't look away. It's one of those things. I saw
Speaks to the character of the man who's running the country right now, let's say.
Yeah, we could say that. All right, let's go ahead. Oh, by the way, happy April Fool's Day. Isn't this funny? You know, when you're a kid, you think April Fool's Day is like a real thing, and then you become an adult, and you're like, oh, it's just a normal day.
My
just gotta go to work.
Youngest is obsessed with April Fool's Day.
That's what I mean. When you're a child,
she loves
like this mystifying
for her
holiday.
Birthday, she asked for like a whole prank kit.
Yeah, that's
she
what I'm
loves
saying.
pranking people.
Yeah, exactly.
Like little harmless stuff, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things where
putting a fake snake on the bed or
you become
whatever,
23, you go to work, and you're like, oh, it's just April 1st. It's like you have to do the water cooler thing and be like, have a good day today.
But make sure you are extra aware of what sort of news you're being fed today, because people do love on Twitter to like make some wild shit up.
That is true.
See who will believe it. So be on extra guard today for
That's
hoaxes.
not even April Fool's. That's just a normal day on Twitter. It's another normal day on Elon's Twitter. Great for us in the news business. Let's go ahead and get to these tariffs. We've got some new announcements or indications there from the White House. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt speaking on the topic. Let's take a listen.
We have another big week. On Wednesday, it will be Liberation Day in America, as President Trump has so proudly dubbed it. We'll be announcing a tariff plan that will roll back the unfair trade practices that have been ripping off our country for decades. And I'll let the president get into the specifics of the announcement, but he has a brilliant team of trade advisors. You have Secretary Bessent, Secretary Lutnick, like that. Steve.
Any exemptions for farmers being considered for these tariffs?
No exemptions at this time.
Liberation Day, no exemptions. The line on this has probably changed about 15 different times from the White House. Trump has currently said he has settled on Liberation Day on the plan. He says, I've settled it. Liberation Day means that you will find out tomorrow. That's basically what it is. We have got several different...
We'll be liberated from our suspense.
We will be liberated from our suspense. It could mean an across-the-board ring tariff, according to them. It could mean reciprocal tariffs. It could be, according to him, lesser tariffs. It could be every country. It could be 10 to 15 countries. Nobody really knows. That's why the stock market and all of that is currently in haywire. And yesterday, stocks were down, then they closed up because of some of those comments there from Donald Trump. But the point is that this level of suspense and people being kept on their toes means that no matter what happens, you're going to see a major reaction there on Wednesday.
That was also the press avail in which she announced that they're closing the case.
Oh, I know. Trust me.
On Signal Gate, Saagar.
Yes, I'm aware.
So the brightest minds were convened. In, Elon's Doge team got on it. They figured out the great mystery of how Jeffrey Goldberg's number got into Mike Waltz's phone, and they're moving on.
I am not yet allowed to reveal some of the things that I know about Mike Waltz. One day I will be allowed to reveal about some of the things that he has been saying behind the scenes, and you will not believe some of the things and excuses that he has come up with. And it goes way beyond Elon's technical advisors and the White House getting to the bottom and case closed on this. It's genuinely some of the stupidest things I've ever heard in my life. Not yet allowed to say it, but I will get to it one day.
The tease.
All right.
Tease for the future.
This is the problem with sources. They're like, tell you this stuff off the record, and it's so juicy, and you're like, come on, dude, let me say something, And then they're like, nah, you can't do it yet. You got to wait, etc. So we'll get there. I'll hammer him, and I'll ask if I can actually reveal it. Okay, let's go to the next part here. This is on the Fox News confronting Caroline Leavitt on the polling of this. Let's take a listen.
And our new Fox News polling shows that people perhaps are concerned with how things are going. This is as of March 14th. Those that say they disapprove, 56%, more than half. Those who approve of the president's handling of the economy is at 43%. And in that same polling, we asked about the most important issue facing the country today. And top of the list is inflation. And the economy is number 2, and jobs. Those are first and second as it goes down to political division and preservation of democracy. Is the president doing enough to answer the needs and demands of the American voter when it comes to the economy and lowering prices?
The president and his economic team are working on this effort every single day. And the president is not only trying to fix the mess created by the previous administration's incompetence and reckless spending, he is trying to fix decades of unfair trade practices that have ripped our country off, that have sent jobs overseas, and that have forced millions of Americans out of their jobs.
So, yeah, look, even Fox and all them, I mean, all the polling on this is now, like, pretty clear. People are not that happy about it. Let's go ahead and put this next up on the screen. This is just where the futures are right now, literally kind of as we speak. Yesterday, the S&P closed up by about 0.6. Right now, it's down by about 0.6. So it's, like, basically flat. As I said, nobody has any idea about what's going to happen, which means that it's not, quote, priced in, and it does mean that there's going to be a massive could be a massive correction, depending on what the policy that he announces on Wednesday.
Yeah, well, and as we've said ad nauseum at this point, like, even if you wanted to, even if you're like a tariff person and you're in favor of some version of this, you don't even have like a story to tell or anything to defend yet. So tomorrow, perhaps all will be revealed. Maybe, or maybe he'll put something on and take it off again like he did previously. Exactly. Who knows? And I think it was Joe Weisenthal that made this point on Twitter yesterday, which is an important one, which is, some of his explanations for why the tariffs are good are completely contradictory. So, for example, he'll talk about how it's going to raise all of this revenue. I mean, tariffs are effectively, especially when they're across the board, effectively a regressive tax. But, they're going to raise all of this revenue for, the U.S. Treasury and make our country super wealthy. But he'll also indicate that, it's going to cause all of these jobs to come back and, we're going to reindustrialize America. Well, those two things don't really fit together, because if you're actually reindustrializing, then you're not getting the tariffs on the imports. So none of it really adds up. Not that I really want to even overthink it at this point, so we don't actually know what we're truly talking about here. But, with regard to the politics of this, this is an extraordinary situation for Trump, where the economy is like his weakest. He has a number of issues in which the American people are not too happy with what he's been up to. But this is probably the biggest political liability for him. This is the area where he has turned what used to be a strength into one of his greatest weaknesses. And the other point that I saw made on Twitter yesterday, which I think is a good and important one too, is that even just the uncertainty of are they on, are they off, what are they doing, et cetera, has already caused a freeze in a lot of economic activity. Businesses who are, importing a bunch of goods in anticipation, who are freezing hiring, even just the uncertainty has an economic impact and takes an economic toll. As we saw, the estimate of GDP in the first quarter was 0.3% growth, which is extremely low. You even see it in some things like flight bookings from Canada to the U.S. have fallen off like 70%. So there's a hit to the tourism industry as well from the on-again, off-again tariffs and the sort of belligerent attitude vis-a-vis Canada and Mexico as well. So, there's a lot of fallout from this even before the full tariff regime goes into effect.
Well, where are they going to go? Winnipeg? All right, they'll be back. I'm just sorry, Canadians, but
there's a big world out there.
Where are they going to go?
A lot of options.
What?
A lot of options.
Okay, fly to Greenland then, since it's so close. Actually, no, that's going to be ours soon. I'm joking. Coming back to the tariffs, to the tariff conversation, you're exactly right. And this is the problem with you and I run a business. Somebody says, hey, you may or may not have X amount of money in a month. And they're like, should we do any hiring? No, we're not doing any hiring, right?
That's right. Yeah,
this is obvious.
Exactly right.
This is how any normal person who runs a business is going to be thinking. This is why confidence, planning, and all of these other things, yes, even in an uncertain environment, it's never a sure thing, but to be able to make decisions, you want to have like pretty good information about how things are going to go. When you have uncertainty, that causes a pullback. That's going to cause lack of spending, perhaps firing. And if we do see some major tariffs that go into place, there is no question that that's going to cause a major reaction. What's also interesting is about some of the reaction overseas. Let's go ahead and put this up there on the screen. Lots being made of this. I'm still actually trying to wrap my head around this. So China, Japan, and South Korea have announced, according to Chinese state media, but the Japanese and the South Koreans have not denied it, have said that they have agreed to respond to a U.S. tariff, agreed to respond to U.S. tariffs, an assertion that Seoul has said is, quote, somewhat exaggerated, and that Tokyo has downplayed. However, it's one of those where they're talking out of both sides of their mouth. Now, we shouldn't say this is like some full-scale, like, joint, declaration between the three countries, who all hate each other, if you will recall some of the Asian dynamics. But the issue does get to the purpose not only of trade and tariffs, but fundamentally about what are we trying to do here. And what we're trying to do is reciprocal tariffs, which is if they charge us this and they charge us that, that I think speaks to some basic level of market fairness. The problem, as I keep saying, is that we have all these crazy justifications. It's fentanyl. It's not fentanyl. It's cars. It's not cars. It's US cars. But some US cars are actually made with a ton of foreign parts. You have not got to sell America and really the world on what is the future going to look like. When you have uncertainty, people look in different directions. So is this some full-scale like realignment against you? No, Japan and China are not allying anytime soon to retaliate against the United States. But, sometimes, the whole enemy of my enemy is my friend thing, the Japanese, they're ruthless in their trading partners and in their own tariff regime. You can go and look at some of the things that they do. How do you think that, their government has propped up and has made their companies some of the most preeminent in the entire world, and it didn't happen by accident? So they know with you have some sort of existential threat, or even marginal threat, to their overall bottom line here with these tariffs. They're gonna have to look in a different direction. It's gonna change their overall calculus and relationship with the United States. Now, I wanna be clear, this is often used by neoliberals to say that we should never put tariffs on our, quote, allies, and I think that's ridiculous. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I'm saying you have to have care and a plan and actual certainty. This goes for the consumer and for other countries as well. And that's my biggest critique here of the entire policy.
Yeah, and I mean, nations around the world be foolish not to look at the way that he's handled already the relationship with Canada and Mexico in particular, and all of these threats. And there are tariffs that were put into place, and he's threatening economic war against Canada in order to annex them. They would be foolish to not look around and go like, okay, well, on our own, we don't have any prayer against the United States of America, which is a giant economy and really important to any number of nations around the world. On our own, we don't have a prayer. We need to figure out some sort of way to coordinate to have a chance of, effectively pushing back against whatever it is that Trump has in store for us. So it shouldn't be surprising when you see conversations like this, and the leaders of these three nations just had a meeting, and so we don't know exactly what was said there, but the indication is there's at least somewhat of an opening to coordinating on some level. So that is, extraordinarily noteworthy here in terms of, what the world is going to look like going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see how it shakes out in the future, because the South Koreans and the Japanese also talked a really big game the first time around whenever there were tariffs that were put into place. Trump actually tried to put major tariffs on South Korea during the first term. Actually, yours truly wrote an article against that because I was like, it's a bad idea. We're in this whole thing with this whole North Korea situation right now. Why would we exactly want to be, having tension here with South Korea? Also, the thing is about South Korea and Japan, yes, people know I hate Europe. But here's the thing. The Japanese, the South Koreans, they're good allies. They're tremendously economically important and viable to the United States. Not the Japanese, because they're literally constitutionally prohibited, are not allowed to spend on their defense. Look at the South Korean defense budget. I mean, look also at they're not ideologically against us. Economically, they're good partners. They're dramatically important to the overall U.S. economy. And then broadly in the region, that is the most important region that's actually increasing its overall economic activity, its population, and its importance to America. And it gets probably 1/15 the amount of care that it deserves here in Washington. Probably not the people I would antagonize. At the same time, they certainly do have an imbalance in our trading relationship with the two. Here we're going to turn now to Donald Trump, asked here about what these small-scale tariffs and whether those were going to be into place. He's downplaying that, giving us, again, some peek into what it might be. Let's take a listen.
On the tariffs that you're planning, so you're expecting to hit something like 10 to 15 countries, is that right?
No.
All countries? All of the countries.
Is it across the board?
Not 10. I don't know. Who told you 10 or 15
Well,
countries?
we heard that. So we heard that you were going to aim for the 15%.
But you didn't hear it from me.
Okay, so how many countries will be in that initial tranche?
You'd start with all countries, so let's see what happens. There are many countries involved.
On the Russian...
I haven't heard a rumor about 15 countries, 10 or 15.
So you're starting with all countries?
Well, essentially, all of the countries that we're talking about. I wouldn't be talking about all countries. It's not a cutoff. And if you look at the history and you look at what's happened to us, you go to certain places, go to Asia, and you take a look at every single country in Asia, what they've done to the United States in trade. And by the way, in military in a certain way. You look at, take a look at trade with Asia, and I wouldn't say anybody is treated as fairly or nicely, but we are going to treat them, we're going to be much more generous to them in terms of heart. We're going to be much more generous than they were to us.
So, yeah, you could take that for what you will. Let's go ahead and put this up there on the screen. From Jeff Stein, he says, Donald Trump is described by several sources as pushing big with tariffs. He's described as a simple universal rate as high as 20%, described as wary of advisors trying to talk him down and weaken his trade agenda, which he believes limited the tariff impact of his first term, thinks tariffs are a win-win for federal revenue and bringing back manufacturing, is thinking of transforming the U.S. economy in terms of decades or centuries, some sources said, rather than the next few months. It's one of those where I've said, you can make this case. I think you could make a probably good case. Many people would stick with you, although in our consumer society, it might be a little bit difficult. But the problem I just keep coming back to is just about the communication and the chaotic nature of the way that much of this is being put into place will significantly pose a major risk, not only to your political chances, but let's be honest here, even if you do announce some sort of major tariff, what confidence would any of us have that that's actually going to remain into place? And that gets to that uncertainty with the business. If I was a business, I would just sit there and wait it out. I'd be like, okay, shut it down. Let's see what actually happens. And of course, that will have big ramifications, but it's probably better than paying some crazy tariff or something, especially if you know that it's going to go away in a few weeks, or at least if you have a relative confidence.
Yeah, or even wait it out like, okay, this guy's going to be in office for a few years, and then we're very likely to get a different president. Probably, and then the regime will completely change again. So yeah, we can just wait it out, put our heads down and muddle through the next few years, and then see what comes out on the other side.
Yes.
So I think that's all very possible. Also, we can put Joe Weisenthal's piece up on the screen here. This A6 and A7. He has 8 different thoughts about what these tariffs really mean. And one of the things he's pointing to here, Liberation Day isn't a binary event. That's kind of what I was referring to before, where already all of they're on, they're off, here's what we're doing, no, we're not doing that, no, we're going big, no, it's going to be just a few countries. All of this has already created problems. Let's go to the next piece as well. He also talks about the fact that he's making a case here that when economies become rich, then they're capable of building the most complex things. And so if you're trying to go back to reindustrialize like sort of simpler products, then that might not be the direction you want to go in. I don't fully agree with that because I do think, for me, I think there's a targeted tariff approach that is logical and is beneficial. We all saw during COVID how detrimental it was to our safety, health, and security, that so much of the supply chain was overseas, so that there were basic medical supplies we couldn't produce here. Also in terms of supply chain fragility, it was a disaster. So there is a tariff scheme that I would support, but the whole across the board situation to me is insane. And then the last point that he also makes is that even if your goal is reindustrializing, these things are very interconnected, and it's very difficult to game out what impact it's going to have. So, for example, oil companies have reduced output because they're concerned about the price of some of the electrical components that they need in terms of their process. So, when you're doing this across the board thing and it's not matched with any sort of concerted industrial policy, in fact, the government's going the opposite direction of rolling back some of the previous industrial policy that was put into place, it's also not even clear that you're going to get any of the results that you are gaming for here, whatever those are. Not that that's really been spelled out by Trump in particular, but if we zoom out here, I think that the big picture is, yes, there is another potential economic paradigm that Americans could be open to that wasn't based around them being consumers of a lot of cheap goods from overseas. But if you are going to just take away the cheap goods and hike prices and not offer any other alternative like benefits, then no, it's going to be dramatically unpopular. And you're also flirting with a stagflation situation in which growth is low or zero. You still have high inflation. That really makes it difficult for the Fed to do anything because, if they hike interest rates, then you're lowering growth even more. If they lower interest rates, then you are increasing inflation. So that's why that situation is so incredibly difficult to deal with and so dangerous and, is really a looming possibility right now.
Yeah, to return, just last thing on it, because I really like this argument that he makes. What he's talking about in terms of riches is monetary riches, and that is what we need to redefine. So Joe has a great statistic that I learned, quote, one of the most important facts about the world is that in the last 15 years, China has become the global manufacturing powerhouse at the cutting edge of multiple industries, but the Shanghai Composite Stock Index is scarcely above where it was in 2009. So, you know what U.S. stocks are up from 2009? I literally don't know off the top of my head. It's probably hundreds and hundreds of percent. Are we richer materially than we were in 2009? I would say no, absolutely not. In China, I would say, yeah, they're a lot richer in terms of they got drone deliveries, they've got the BYD, Xiaomi cars, their society and their overall net growth and quality of life has dramatically increased. Look, I'm just gonna sit here and admit it. Go to Shenzhen today. Go look at any video, go talk to any person or look at anything in Shenzhen, in Chongqing, in any of these major cities, even that you wouldn't even necessarily know, like the mid-tier cities of China, and tell me that they're not living better than we are. Now, yes, they're living in apartments, certainly. They don't have any crime, it's pretty safe, train goes on time. There's, I could go on forever. These are different models of economic activity, but I think that's the point that he's trying to make about riches. We are richer in the sense that, yes, a flat screen television is much cheaper, fantastic. We are richer in the sense that, be honest, this iPhone in my hand, is it all that materially different than the iPhone 4 that I bought in 2010? No, it's just not. Be honest here. The camera quality is better. And also it's still manufactured in China, last time that I checked. That's, I think, the point that he's trying to make about manufacturing and riches, as in the definition of riches financially is basically the one that the United States has decided to go all in on. He even says that. He's like, the greatest export of the United States is U.S. stocks and treasuries. Okay, great. It's definitely better off for it, right? We talk a lot about this in the chips context. The chips are all designed here. What does that thing say whenever you open your Apple box? Designed in Cupertino, California. Why does it say designed? Because it's designed here. It's manufactured somewhere else. Tell me who has the power. Who's actually materially richer?
Well,
I think it's them.
Not only that, but those, high-end design and pushing the tech frontier, it's not like we're maintaining our edge there. It's we're at best at competitive level with China, and I think increasingly they're surpassing us in terms of the leading edge of transformative, future-oriented tech is increasingly coming out of China. So, the bet that we made that we could keep this high, the sort of high end, design in Cupertino and keep the low end manufacturing there. Well, it turns out if you are the one manufacturing the products, and also if you have a government that's been very committed to investing in research, investing in technology, trying to push their country in that direction, then you have a huge advantage in terms of innovating for the future. Meanwhile, our companies have grown into these, giant monopolies, in many ways complacent, in many ways much more focused on, how to game the stock market and give themselves stock buybacks and do financial engineering than they have been on genuine innovation. I don't want to erase the genuine innovation that has been going on. We obviously have these LLMs that are leading edge coming out of American companies from American investment, et cetera. But if you look across the board, certainly in the EV realm, China's kicking the ass of every American car company. It's not really even close. There was a post that was going viral on Twitter. Saagar tells me it's a little bit of a gimmick, but gives you a sense of the sort of future-oriented direction that China is heading in. They just issued a commercial license for these like drone quadcopter taxis where you can, you know, as like a consumer hop in this. It's like some Jetsons kind of shit that they're contemplating here. And meanwhile, we're, you know, like pumping the next talk to a coin or whatever.
Right.
So,
and I have the stats. So since 2009, the S&P 500 is up, let's see, a total return on investment of 841%. The Shanghai index is up 2.28%. But, you know, be serious. Yes, there are a lot of people out here. If you were lucky enough and you've had your 401k and all of that, I think that's fantastic. But you should take a look at what the alternative economic model of that is and what it means to be actually rich and what that, you know, the definition of that, to me, is not just where the S&P 500 is. Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
and if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.